Hi, this is Matthew. Gonna do another review here of an old-time radio show this time that I really enjoy called The Shadow, which ran from 1937 to 1954 on the Mutual Broadcasting System for most of its life. It's no longer around, that network. Actually, by the time I discovered The Shadow, it was apparently dying. It ended in 1999. I forget when it started. I didn't look that up. Originally, Street and Smith make pulp magazines, and they had a detective story magazine. And I thought, hey, let's put that on the radio, but let's get some kind of mysterious presenter guy to kind of introduce it, and narrate it. And they thought about it for a while, and somebody came up with The Shadow. So in 1930, it started there. It was the Detective Story Hour. He's kind of this mysterious narrator that kind of narrates the series, kind of like The Whistler does, which is another show, kind of similar, but it's you have a mysterious narrator guy who's, telling you about, kind of apart, like separate from the show, but like he knows, at least in The Whistler, he knows what their actions are going to be. He kind of knows what they're doing. I don't know about this Detective Story Hour. I've never found it. I don't know if it exists much. I heard a clip once of it. I've never come across this. And it did so well that people kept going to newsstands and going, hey, where's that Shadow magazine thing at? From this character. Why can't I find this magazine? The people at Street and Smith said, oh, well, we'll fix that. We'll make a magazine of The Shadow because we don't have a magazine of The Shadow, just Detective Story Hour. And in 1931, they did just that. And that went until 1949. They were like stories. I guess they were serialized. There were some books and stuff after. But it continued for a while. Went from CBS, started there. Detective Story Hour started on CBS, went to NBC, and then went back to CBS and stopped in 1935. I don't know how long these were on exactly, but it went for that long. Then they decided to not do that. People want him on the radio as The Shadow. We'll make a Shadow series. So that took till 1937 on September 26th. That was the first episode. There were many narrators. My favorite narrator, or my favorite character, or guy who played The Shadow, is Orson Welles. He did it from 37 to 38. And left to do, I assume, the Mercury Radio Theater on the air, which did that famous War of the Worlds broadcast that you might have heard about. It's really quite interesting. And went on from there and did some other radio things and movies and all kinds of stuff. After him became Bill Johnstone. And then I believe Brett Morrison took over. Went quite a while. There were a couple other guys whose names I've now forgotten. I just saw them a second ago. And then Brett Morrison came back to finish out the run of the series from there until 54. There's only one episode from 54, honestly. It goes from 37 all the way to 43. Kind of stops there as World War II was really in full swing. There's nothing remaining until 45 onwards. You get to 49. Then there's like the one episode from 54, and that's it. We don't have any of the in-between shows. There are scripts. People did various readings of them, though, like old-time radio conventions in the 70s and stuff. So I bought a collection from a guy in wave format, which is like huge files, for a lot of money, but it's worth it. He has all the existing episodes that I know about. He's got some of these readings, and there was a show in Australia, too. And so when possible, he's put in the Australian episodes to kind of fill the gap, which there aren't a ton of. There's not a ton of those, but there are a few scattered around the show. So there are some missing things there. There's pretty much scripts for everything. There were 677 total episodes. I think there's only about 200 and something. I forget the exact number that are available. It's 200 and something. I don't know. It's 220, 260. I forget. Something in there that we have. But he is Cranston is the main person, but he has the ability to cloud people's minds. They can't see him in the radio series. Not so in the magazine per se, but he's much. I don't know, he's not as violent as he is in the radio series. He's much less violent in the radio series. He just clouds their minds. They can't see him. He's able to stop them because they can't see him doing anything. He'll take their guns and stuff and send them to the police for arrest and trials and prison or whatever happens, but he is able to do that. And usually his assistant Margot Lane, friend and companion, basically. They don't ever specify their relationship. Some say she's more than just a friend and companion. Then no one's really they never really said. She does say she loves him at one point. But yeah, he went to get all these abilities. He went to India and various mystical places like that, China, and places to learn from these masters about how to hypnotize, mesmerize people. They couldn't see them. Those kinds of stuff. He really did a bunch of training to that. He's apparently, obviously, he's very rich. Apparently, she might be as well, Margot. He also had another guy, Shreve. He was a cab driver. He appeared in some episodes as kind of a comedic relief, but he did drive them around sometimes. I guess they didn't want to use their own car, which both do drive a car, or maybe both cars, at different times. Sometimes separately, sometimes they're together doing things. I'm pretty sure they both drove at different times. Mostly Lamont, I think, but I forget. But I think it varies some. And then you also had the police commissioner, Commissioner Weston. And again, Shrevey, Margot, and Commissioner Weston were all played by different people. I know Margot started with Agnes Moorehead. I know Grace Matthews was there too. I think there were other Margos who I can't think of their names. I don't know who all played Shrevey or Commissioner Weston. They definitely changed actors. I know Sanders Ortega. He was in a bunch of old-time radio shows back then, various types. And in a bunch of CBS Radio Mystery Theater episodes. I'm going through that one nightly before I go to sleep. Yeah, people getting murdered and whatever. But it's interesting. But yeah, he's in several of those episodes too. But yeah, multiple people were in this. Yeah, you had a lot of criminal vice gangsters. You had a lot of mad scientists who were German, obviously, because that time period. That's Germany was kind of evil for obvious reasons. Things that was where they were depicted anyway. In these things, a lot of mad scientist types. Some kind of social people that took things the wrong way, that were well-meaning-ish. Lots of different types of criminals like that. Some were just like stealing stuff as well. The early ones were a lot of like mad scientists and like kind of people that went a little bit crazy and went into the jungles and did stuff. There was a lot or someone else probably was the best actor to me, but he had all the really corny plots. But he worked it out. I guess he was one where he just would come in and just look at the script and do it. He didn't really read it in advance. He was so busy. He would just read a script right there, find his places, and I guess mark it in some way that he knew what to do. But I know a lot of them work that way. They work on 3, 4, 5 things or whatever at different times, and they just go around all week long doing different shows, and I guess making quite a living at it. He wasn't the only one that did that. A lot of those guys traveled around, and then I know, like CBS and stuff, they all had their own like kind of character actors they would use for stuff. And I think Mutual worked the same way, because I know some people. One guy in particular was a really early on. Was a really had a really good kind of psycho crazy guy voice. I think he was in a few shows that I've heard. I have gone through the whole run from my purchases, but it took a while. Yeah, he was a really good. I don't know what his name was, but he just played Crazy Man really well. I don't know his name, but his voice is so distinctive in my head. I don't know his name, but I know when he was trying to blow up people and stuff and set bombs off and things. He's played Crazy really well. But yeah, I think they had their own cast of character guys that they would use here and maybe on other similar programs, much like CBS and NBC and all those did similar stuff. But yeah, my favorite radio series, I discovered it in 7th grade, I guess. I'd heard about it, but at the time, my state library for the Blind Wolf Library they started where you could check out old-time radio shows and like other kinds of plays and stuff, and I did. And the first thing I saw in the cat was a shadow, and I immediately requested like all of it. And yeah, it took me a while, and I got Dressed Dragnet and the New Adventures of Sherlock Holmes that Mitchell also did. Never did get. I forget that. There's one other one I was looking for, but I never got it. But I got a few other plays and things from them, but I guess that's all gone now. I don't know where those sets came from, but they had quite a collection. Lone Ranger and all kinds of other shows you could get a hold of. I don't know if it's just us or maybe Library of Congress did it. I don't know. None of that stuff is, of course, available anywhere, to my knowledge. But that's where I first heard The Shadow, was from 3 or 4 sets that they had. I forget how many tapes were in there, but quite a few. All on tape at the time. Obviously, later on, there were a whole bunch of there's been CDs and vinyl made of it. And in '68, there was an LP of 2 adventures. Brett Morrison, Grace Matthews, and Sanders Ortega came back to do those. Those are included in my stuff. I made sure he went through and made sure to grab things off of. I think those were included, but I know there was some stuff some bonus stuff on some of his tapes that he pulled for me. But I think those were already in there. But they're mono. It's a mono and stereo of these in my set. One was the computer calculates the shadow nose. Computer calculates the shadow nose, and then the air freight fracas were the 2 kind of new stories they made in '68. They didn't do any more of those. It's just those 2, but I do have them. I don't know if I've actually heard those. I need to hear them. I don't think I've heard those 2 yet. I need to go in there and hear those at some point. But I have them on a thumb drive, and I back them up to my OneDrive account. But I do have the flash drives. The flash drive it's on. It's a big flash drive. It's like 130 gigs or something. It's a biggie, big old thing. Yeah, see, that's on there. Then he pulled like a. He went. They had him on a. They had the shadow. He had. What was supposed to go on a quiz show and be the shadow. And I think he asked people questions. It was a special edition of whatever this game show was. And he came on and did that. And then I didn't think I had an episode, but apparently I did. So I've got 2 copies of one episode. But that's all right. I think quality's about the same on both. But it was labeled differently, and so I said I just showed him like these things were from the tapes, but they don't seem to be on the non-CD version or on the CD versions. So he very kindly converted those. A lot of times when he went to his own tapes, he didn't charge me, but he's very costly. Fairly good to work with. It's gotten very expensive, and I ordered like 3 or 4 or 5 things from him, and then he changed his pricing. But if you really want something that's good quality, I would go to him. Just know you're going to have to pay a lot, potentially, for whatever you're trying to get a hold of. I will see it's at radio. You can go to just Google or just do a search for Radio Memories, and you'll find his website. I think it's just radiomemories.com. I think there might be a dash there. Just search it. He does have them in many other shows. He maybe could work out. He might even work out like a payment system, possibly. But he is a little pricey, but fairly okay to work with most of the time. I think he seems pretty good to work with. So I'd recommend him. Just he is pricey. There are cheaper options, but they're not going to sound as good, most likely. That's the only reason I went with him, because I knew he's going to have good quality material, pretty much as good as he can get it. But I do like some of the later ones, because you hear there's like the little beep sound from the transcription disc, like maybe to indicate where the program starts. So that's kind of fun. There's some of those on some of the later episodes I have. It's just the beep noise as the needle's dropping. So I guess maybe that tone was to indicate the start of the program, because just a second later it kind of starts. But not all of them have that. But I just love that series. I don't know why. I just always have. Through what I can hear of it. Yeah. There's a couple of random interviews from there was a college station I was on in college, and it was online only. They decided to air The Shadow, and they had a couple of extra documentaries that they're not in my set, but I do have them. I could pull them. I was able to make a copy of both of their discs of The Shadow. I don't know if they have everything, but quality was not great. But I think if I ever find them again, I can find those. There was a general overview of the series, and there was an interview with Agnes Moorehead, I think from '61. In fact, the interview thing that talked about the series overall, I think it was from '85 or something, but they interviewed one of the people that played the organ, and she's demonstrating like some of the themes that she played. That was neat. I don't remember her name now. I don't know where that stuff is right now. I'd have to dig it out, but I should probably include those in my set. They're MP3s, but they sounded better than the episodes did. But at the time, it was a way to get The Shadow easily, and they didn't care if I borrowed it real quick and brought it back. So I did. But now I have them in much better quality. So I do have a couple of CD collections also. I know radiospirits.com has. They should still have them. I haven't browsed up there for a while. I tried to get a set. My mom did for Christmas one time. It never arrived. Something happened to it. I don't know. I hope she got her money back. But I have all the episodes that were in those sets. I double checked, and I have all of they were all included in his collection. So I have them now in this, at least in a digital form. But they had some collections where they had some lost episodes included with other episodes, but I don't have those sets. I have a couple of other sets that they put out. Actually, I also have a sci-fi set from them, but they have good collections if you don't want just, 10 to 20 discs a piece. They do pretty good work. Sometimes their quality's kind of weird, but overall they have really good quality stuff. You might check Radio Spirits also for The Shadow and other shows. And then there's also free ones on archive.org. You might browse archive.org for The Shadow and other things. I know they claim it's copyrighted, but I don't know if it's really copyrighted, but I know some of the big old-time radio stations cannot play The Shadow because they've been told they can't play it by whoever holds the copyrights. So there's some debate on whether it's really copyrighted or not. Obviously, when 95 years comes along, it may not be. I don't know if those count as in the radio TV category or if it's a sound recording, which is 100 years. I don't know how that works. But either way, yeah. Not necessarily relating to this, but maybe at some point I'll be freely available and we won't have to worry about any of that. But they aren't right now. But go find the series somewhere. Check it out if you haven't. I'm sure there are a lot of places that sell it, a lot of places you can probably stream it, like archives.org, that wouldn't cost you a thing. But, definitely go find it somewhere if you haven't, or maybe re-listen to episodes again somewhere if you liked some or just want to hear the show again. Obviously, when radio was, that's a syndicated radio show. Basically, through Radio Spirits. I've lost the name of the guy that hosts it now. It used to be Stan Freeberg. They probably will play some shadows. I think I've heard a few on there. And SiriusXM Radio Classics definitely has a shadow as well as other shows. I don't know when it's on specifically, but you might check their schedules. I haven't for a while. But I do like going over there and just seeing what's on sometimes. I have a physical radio. I have the app too, but they probably have the shadow as well at different times. I know I've heard a few on there, I think, sporadically. I don't know if they have a slot. I have to look at their schedule again. I don't know how they have theirs. They kind of have themed segments of it. I don't quite remember how those work. But he should be on there as well. But I think I will go ahead and wrap this up and definitely give it a listen again if you haven't. There were comic books, the novels, as I said. There's been a few movies. The only one I have ever seen is the 1997 version, which all the actors have escaped my head. It was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I have it in my own personal collection. But he's definitely more of more of the comic type character. He doesn't have the invisibility, clouding his mind stuff that he did in the radio series, but a good adaptation anyway. But I will go ahead and end this now, and I will talk to you guys in another video.